Born into a period of racial segregation in the United States, Dorothy Counts became an icon of resistance when she was only 15 years old. On a fateful day in September 1957, Counts embarked on an act that would challenge the status quo. Nearly 3 years after the monumental Supreme Court ruling in Brown v. Board of Education, she became the first, and at that time, the only black student to attend the newly desegregated Harry Harding High School in Charlotte, North Carolina. Dropped off by her father and family friend Edwin Tompkins, Counts was met with a hostile crowd of 200 to 300 people, mostly students and parents, chanting racial slurs and throwing sticks and pebbles at her. Photographer Douglas Martin captured this moment in a poignant image that won him the 1957 World Press Photo of the Year. The photograph showcased a calm and composed Counts walking past a jeering crowd, highlighting her courage and resilience. Once inside the school, Counts' trials didn't end. In the classroom, she was placed at the back and ignored by her teacher. During lunch, she was circled by a group of boys who spat in her food. After only 4 days, facing escalating harassment that now threatened her family's safety, her family car's windows were shattered. Her parents withdrew her from the school. After these grueling events, Counts moved with her family to Philadelphia, completing her high school education in an integrated school. She later returned to Charlotte, earning a degree from Johnson C. Smith University and dedicating her career to early childhood education and advocacy for children from low-income families. In 2006, nearly half a century after that iconic photograph was taken, Count Scoggins received an apology from Woody Cooper, one of the boys in the photograph. They agreed to use their story as a lesson for future generations, participating in interviews and speaking engagements together. Counts' legacy remains an inspiring tale of courage against overwhelming adversity, forever captured by Douglas Martin's lens. "Hold your head high. You are inferior to no one," her father had told her on that first day, words that resonate across the years, epitomizing her story. This compelling photograph, captured on June 9, 1944, 3 days after the historic D-Day landings, offers a glimpse into the sheer scale and audacity of the largest amphibious invasion in human history. Taken at the Normandy coast, the image is more than a snapshot. It's a testament to an operation that would change the course of World War II. Codenamed Operation Neptune and commonly referred to as D-Day, the Allied invasion commenced on June 6, 1944. The operation involved 160,000 troops, 195,700 naval and merchant navy personnel, and a flotilla of 5,000 ships crossing the English Channel. The landing spanned a 50-mile coastline, divided into 5 sectors: Utah, Omaha, Gold, Juneau, and Sword. Dominating the sky in the photograph are barrage balloons, tethered with metal cables. These balloons were designed to force dive bombers to ascend above 5,000 feet, making them vulnerable to anti-aircraft fire. Some were even equipped with small explosive charges to ensure the destruction of any colliding aircraft. Visible on the beach are Army half-tracks, forming a convoy as they prepare to join the front lines. Ingeniously, large concrete structures known as mulberry harbors were sailed across the channel to serve as makeshift docks. These engineering marvels enabled the rapid unloading of troops and supplies, helping sustain the Allied advance. An eerie legacy of the intense fighting is that as much as 4% of the sand on Normandy beaches is composed of magnetic shrapnel, disintegrated over decades into sand-sized particles. Despite the grand scale, the Allies failed to capture key objectives like Corentin, Street Low, and Cannes on the first day. Cannes was only liberated on July 21. Yet, by June 12, all 5 beachheads were connected, forming a foothold that would lead to the eventual liberation of Western Europe. The operation resulted in estimated German casualties ranging from 4,000 to 9,000. The Allies suffered at least 10,000 casualties, with 4,414 confirmed dead. The photograph captures not just a moment, but a monumental endeavor that involved great sacrifice, altering the tide of war irrevocably. In the heart of the Great Depression, a striking photograph captured the essence of despair and resilience that defined a generation. The image is known as Migrant Mother, taken by Dorothea Lange, an eminent American documentary photographer employed by the Farm Security Administration, FSA. The FSA was a government program aimed at assisting impoverished farmers and raising public awareness about their plight. In Nipomo, California, in 1936, Lange met Florence Owens Thompson, a mother of 7 children, in a camp filled with field workers devastated by the failure of the pea crops. Lange recalled the encounter years later. "I saw and approached the hungry and desperate mother, as if drawn by a magnet." The photograph was one of 5 exposures Lange took, each time moving closer to Thompson. The photograph didn't just capture a moment, it captured an era. Even Roy Stryker, Lange's boss at the FSA, called it the ultimate photo of the Depression era. Edward Steichen, another monumental figure in photography, described Lange's FSA work as the most remarkable human documents ever rendered in pictures. What makes this photograph more haunting is that Florence Owens Thompson's identity remained unknown for over 40 years. It was only in the late 1970s that Thompson's identity was finally revealed. Thompson herself had mixed feelings about the image. On one hand, she was glad it had brought attention to the plight of the poor. On the other, she felt a sense of betrayal, as she never profited from the image that had become iconic. Despite the sorrow it captured, the photograph also initiated a wave of national empathy and action. In 1983, when Thompson was suffering from cancer and her family couldn't afford the healthcare costs, a public appeal was made. The appeal raised over $35,000, testifying to the lasting impact of the photograph. Thompson passed away on September 16, 1983, but her gravestone fittingly reads, "Florence Leona Thompson, Migrant Mother, a legend of the strength of American motherhood." The migrant mother remains one of the most enduring images of the 20th century. It didn't just record history, it helped to shape it, underlining the critical role of documentary photography in eliciting social change. In a striking photograph captured on August 29, 1944, in Montélimar, France, a crowd gathers around a woman, her face etched with despair. Her head is being forcibly shaved by French civilians. This wasn't a random act of cruelty, but a systematic public humiliation of women believed to have collaborated with the Nazis during the occupation. World War II had deeply scarred Europe, and as the war neared its end, the desire for revenge swelled in the hearts of many. In France, women who had formed relationships with German soldiers, be it out of coercion, necessity, or genuine affection, became particular targets of this rage. Many were labeled as horizontal collaborators, insinuating betrayal through intimate relations. The act of shaving a woman's head as a form of punishment can be traced back to biblical origins and was commonly used in the Middle Ages, especially for adulterers. Revived in the 20th century, it served as a symbolic denuding, stripping a woman of what many perceive as her crowning beauty, her most seductive feature. Between 1943 and early 1946, nearly 20,000 women from various backgrounds and professions were subjected to this demeaning punishment across France. Whether they had been politically affiliated with collaborationist organizations, benefited financially from the occupation, or simply had personal relationships with the Germans, their fates were often the same. Their freshly shaven heads were a stigmatizing brand of perceived betrayal. Some of these women, known as tendus, faced further degradation. They were paraded through towns on the backs of trucks, occasionally painted with swastikas or covered in tar. Such public spectacles serve as stark reminders of the nation's bitter sentiments and the consequences of perceived treachery. British Private Secretary Jacques Colville, who witnessed one such parade in Bayeux, commented, "I watched an open lorry drive past with a dozen miserable women, every hair on their heads shaved off. They were in tears, hanging their heads in shame." He noted that while he was appalled, he recognized that Britain had not been invaded for nearly 900 years and thus could not fully grasp the depth of French sentiments.